Have you ever wondered how much Olympians make? Well, if you have, did you also wonder how much Paralympians make? You'd think that their wages would be the same, or at least close, given the fact that every athlete has to put in effort for years to represent their country. It turns out that that's not the case. Before we jump into the differences in their wages, it would interest you to know that the average McDonald's worker earns up to 50% more than the average athlete. And when I say athlete here, I am referring to the Olympian athlete. The figures are much more disheartening when it comes to the average Paralympian athlete. It doesn't get better when it comes to the cash prizes received from the Olympics, either, as some Paralympians are stated to receive up to 75% less in cash prizes than their Olympian counterparts for winning the same medals. And the funny thing is, these figures are coming from well-established countries and economies. Hong Kong, for instance, announced that its Paralympians would receive 1.5 million Hong Kong dollars for bringing home a gold medal. When converted into US dollars, the figure is about $192,369. At first glance, this looks okay, but once you realize that their Olympian counterparts were promised 6 million Hong Kong dollars, which is roughly $770,000, you start to realize that Paralympians are not held in the same esteem as the Olympians. As discouraging and disappointing as this might be, the cash prizes of the Paralympians have doubled since the Tokyo Olympics, whilst that of the Olympians have only gone up by 20%. This means it was much worse for the Paralympians 4 years ago. Bear in mind that the cash prizes being mentioned here only apply to winners. So, you've got to ask yourself, what happens to those who compete and do not win any medals? How much do they get, and is it enough for them to go by? The simplest answer is no. Most of these Paralympians are poor and broke. The situation is so bad that sometimes individuals working minimum wage jobs earn even more than they do. But why is this the case? Why are Paralympians poor, and is there hope for them? The history of the Paralympics can be traced to the year 1948 at a hospital for war veterans in Stoke Mandeville. It can be credited to German neurologist Sir Ludwig Guttmann, who was looking for a way to help his paraplegic patients who were Second World War veterans. Most of these vets had spinal cord injuries, and he thought that organizing sporting events such as those seen in the Olympic Games in London could help them rehabilitate faster. These vets faced off in archery and netball competitions. Unknown to Dr. Guttmann, he had started something that would eventually become the Paralympic Games. In 1952, the first international Stoke Mandeville Games were held, which saw a team of veterans from the Netherlands compete against British teams. The Games were held annually, and by 1955, there were 18 countries involved with 200 athletes participating. By 1988, the Games had become so prominent that they were held at the same site as Olympic Games in Seoul, Korea. It saw around 3,057 athletes from 60 countries participate. A year after this, the International Paralympic Committee was founded, and the rest, they say, is history. While both the Olympics and Paralympics have evolved over the years, there's one thing they do share in common: the poor remuneration of the participating athletes. A global survey conducted by Global Athlete, which included close to 500 athletes from 48 different nations, revealed that 58% of participants, many of whom were current or former Olympians and Paralympians, did not view themselves as financially secure. Some athletes even shared that they've had to sell belongings on platforms like eBay just to cover rent, while others admitted to relying on parental support to afford basic necessities like food. I know what you are thinking. How's this possible? They train for years. This isn't right. Thousands watch them and nations spend so much to attend, so why are they paid so low? While these thoughts and questions are valid, you have to understand that the International Olympic Committee and the International Paralympic Committee do not directly pay athletes for participating in the games or training. While that doesn't seem fair, you have to understand that in the early days of the Olympics, the prize for many was the celebrity status and prestige that came with winning and participating in the games. This was enough for most individuals back then, but given the current state of economies around the world, celebrity status wouldn't pay the bills. How then do Olympians and Paralympians make money? Well, there are a variety of ways, with the first being the grants and remuneration from the countries they represent. A number of governments support the athletes who make it to their national teams with stipends to cover the cost of equipment and training. For many Paralympians, however, these stipends only exist on paper. Those who are fortunate to receive their stipends also find out the hard way that they are not enough to cover their expenses for the month. When it comes to Paralympians, this is much worse since they require a bit more than the Olympians. Paralympians spend more on equipment and health, yet they are the ones that receive the least funds. A good example of this point is Kate Brim, who is a paracyclist for Team USA. In an event to earn her spot with the team, her hand cycle cracked so badly that she didn't know if she was going to be able to compete or make the team. A temporary fix sent her through, but she needed $8,000 to repair it. That's a lot of money considering she had spent up to $13,000 on her equipment prior to that event. Imagine having to deal with costs like this on a meager stipend from the government. You are sure to end up on the poverty line and fall back on friends and family for support. Many of the Paralympians for this year's Games had to pick up second and third jobs to fund their dreams. Others had to resort to using GoFundMe to raise funds, which should tell you how bad things are for them. You might probably be thinking, why don't they find sponsors like their Olympian counterparts? That's a very good question, but also one that does not have a very positive answer. Organizations love to sponsor individuals or events that contribute positively to their brand and give them visibility. This is the main reason they go after high-performing athletes. While mainstream sports channels and news outlets heavily promote the Olympics, Paralympic events typically get limited airtime, reducing the exposure of athletes to the public. This lack of visibility creates a domino effect. Fewer viewers means fewer sponsorship opportunities. With little to no sponsorship opportunities, Paralympians must fall back on the stipends they receive from their governments as well as support from friends and family. The few who get sponsorship don't enjoy the same level of success as their Olympian counterparts. Another reason for which Paralympic athletes are poor is the high cost of participation as well as health challenges. We already mentioned that their equipment is expensive, which can take most or all of their earnings and stipends. Beyond the equipment cost, Paralympic athletes also have to deal with their disabilities that require often and regular medical attention. This means that the average Paralympic athlete invests a lot with little return on investment. Is it all bleak and hopeless for Paralympians? Well, not entirely. For one, there's increased visibility for Paralympians in the Paralympics. Many more eyes are watching the Olympics due to society becoming increasingly aware of minority groups. I know all that diversity talk can get annoying, but this is one of the goods that's come out of it. The viewing figures for the Paralympic Games doubled between 2012 and 2016, and it's only increased since then. As many individuals pay attention to the Games, many more sponsors will be drawn to it. Beyond increased attention to the Games, institutional reforms are looking good for the Paralympians. The Dutch sports umbrella, the NOC-NSF, no longer distinguishes between Olympic and Paralympic. What this means is that all the facilities, amenities, and finances are the same for Paralympic athletes in the Netherlands as it is for Olympic athletes. The authority is also changing its name from the NOC-NSF to NOPC-NSF, which includes the Paralympic in the name. In America, the wage and prize cash gaps are also closing with each Olympic and Paralympic Games. It's not perfect yet, but we are getting there. Canada is ahead of America with this development as they have also made the prizes the same for both athlete groups. As society and the organizations within it are changing to make lives better for Paralympians, this is what you and I can do. We can do our best to follow the Games, watch it, make posts about it, and raise awareness. If we have more eyes watching, the efforts of these hardworking athletes can be rewarded. Beyond watching the Games, we can also try to push for changes with our local government and support any Paralympic athlete in our own small way. We must go beyond being spectators and hoping for change. We must become active participants in driving that change. And with that, we end today's episode. If you loved it, you would enjoy this next video. Catch you there.